can do that. I've seen these at like, clips of like in seaport areas, parks, large parking lots, universities. Again, it's going to be again, it's not cheap. These are in $5,000–6,000 range. But again, you need one camera, one pole out there in the middle of a parking lot to cover, instead of putting out 10, 12, 15 cameras, this one camera will cover a lot.
Question.
Yeah.
Same scenario. Every camera is one channel that you're picking up, but not
So
necessarily.
the way it works is the first 4 utilize one channel, the second 4 of the 180 utilize the second channel, and the PTZ the third channel. So just like our previous 180 camera, how it actually stitches the port together.
Right.
So you get a first quarter stitch, second quarter stitch.
Make it one.
Make it one.
Oh, okay.
And then
How many runs does it need?
how much?
How many runs does it need?
1.
And how many feet can it go?
So how many?
How many feet?
Okay.
How many feet?
Well, it does have a built-in fiber interface,
Right.
but this camera is no different than any IP camera. It's 330 feet. Right, on Cat 5, but there is a fiber interface built in. So yeah, the second camera, again, the first camera is kind of meant to be putting a light pole in the middle of the parking lot. The second camera with 5 sensors is kind of meant to be mounted against the building. You're just looking out from the building. And the last one is no PTZ, but it does have a fixed camera looking straight down. So it's 8 cameras around and one camera looking down. Again, it's specialized, but again, I told you we had a lot of cameras. All right, page 20 and 21. We now make thermal cameras. So on page 20, the first 2 cameras, again, not my favorites. They are just straight thermal. My preference would be more towards the next 2. The next 2 have a thermal camera plus a traditional video. So you're going to take up 2 camera channels. One's going to show the standard video image. One's going to show a thermal. What's nice about these cameras, they do have fire detection, and they do have temperature reading. So I understand these are very large in like recycling centers, where they have the big, mounds of, I don't say trash, it's all metals and composites, and again, if these piles go on fire, that's literally their profits going up in smoke. So I've noticed, I talked to a couple of the salespeople, they put them on their yards and they just watch the fire, and it does have fire detection, so you will get an alert. I mean, I wouldn't trust your life on it, but for something like that, I would. And I spoke to the sales engineer in Florida. He's actually dealing with Disney, who has a transformer field. And what happens is if one of the transformers blows up, half the people in the hotel have to be comped for the day. So what they do is they're looking to put the camera out in the transformer field, look at the temperature, look at the thermal temperature, and if they see a transformer start to overheat, transfer the load someplace else.
What's the difference between
It depends on, if you look at these cameras, they come in different lens configurations. This one's got a 25 millimeter, this one is a 50 millimeter. So it's going to be dependent on what you're looking at. Again, hopefully if you set it up, we'll give you the correct lens. Next page, again, is PTZs, and now you have either the traditional dome-style PTZ or the box-style PTZ. And again, these have the dual infrared and video on PTZ. Yeah.
What's the range of that price of that thermal image?
The last one?
Yeah. With the fire.
They all have the fire detection. They all have that analytic built in.
Right.
Those 2, I think, were in the mid 3,000 to 4,000 range, ballpark. Don't quote me on that, but it should be close. I sat there webbing on thermal. One of the big draws of thermal is if you're using an analytic to detect something. Typically, the detection range of thermal is about triple the distance that you use a traditional camera. So if you're looking for a perimeter protection or someone coming through a gate or something like that, the thermal gives you triple the distance of what you would normally see in an analog. All right, moving on. All right, Pro Series NVRs. (16 channel to 256 channel. Most of the stuff that myself and Tim sell are typically either a 32 or a 64. Most guys, they'll just do multiples of the 32, multiples of the 64. Just a quick little feature set. Again, up to 12 megapixel of camera resolution. So obviously we have 12 meg cameras, we need a recorder to put a 12 meg, camera into. H.265 compression. So again, we're going to talk about H.265 cameras in a minute. We can decode H.265 plus. The output is actually a 4K output. So if you notice, it says 3840 by 2160. So you can have a 4K camera in and view the full resolution on the 4K monitor out. There are 8 drive bays for a total of 48 terabytes. You can put anywhere from a 1 terabyte drive to a 6 terabyte drive. My preference is either 4s or 6s.
Question about it.
Yeah.
Do they have any plans to upgrade the capacity of the device to an 8 terabyte drive soon, or? But it will be in place, you don't have to. Okay.
So they tell, is there going to be a firmware upgrade
Yeah.
until they actually release it? Did you hear anything about the 8 terabyte drive?
Not yet, there'll be a firmware update.
Okay.
Okay. Typically, I haven't run into many projects where 48 hasn't been enough, and we do have expanded storage chassis that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. So if you do need more, I have external chassis. We will do RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, RAID 6, RAID 10. The only caveat with RAID, guys who know RAID, is when you enable the RAID, it's a software RAID, not a hardware RAID. The normal throughput is 320 megabits. When you enable a RAID, you go down to 200. All right? And one more thing, you notice that I just went through the 32 camera box. The 64 camera box is the same. The only thing is, you notice the throughput, it did not change. So you would think you'd double the amount of cameras, the throughput would change. So you got to be careful, depending on the size of the cameras you're putting on the boxes. If you're putting a lot of, 6 meg, 12 megapixel, you probably want to do multiples of the 32. If you're going to stick with 2 to 4 megapixel, you're probably okay on the 64. All right. We also make a 128 and a 256. Again, be careful on the amount of throughput. This one does have 6 HDMI outputs, so if you do need to go out to receptionist desk or manager's office, don't have to use a client, don't have to use a decoder, you can go out on an HDMI that's built in. So again, typically, anything over 16, we do our plug and plays we're going to talk about, you're going to be on this page with a 32 or a 64. So far, so good? All right. Skip over that page. All right, so let's get to page 24. Okay, so this is going to be the second IP product line we have now. It's the Value Plus series. Typically on page 24 or 25, this is where I like you guys to be as far as product-wise. Even though we have a Value series, the cameras on these pages are not that much more than the value, maybe $10, $15 more. Everything on these pages are real wide dynamic. So we spoke about wide dynamic before, and they're H.264 plus. Capable. So you have to enable it. Again, obviously you got 264, 264 plus, 265, 265 plus we're going to talk about. The higher you go, the more compression you get. So you got these are capable of 264 plus, as opposed to regular 264. Typically, most of the cameras in this series are fixed. Obviously, you guys know the 21 series. So in this little dome series, we go anywhere from 1 meg to 5 megapixel. In the Value Plus, it's 2 meg, 4 meg, and 5 meg. It is fixed lens, 2.8 for a 6. Most popular lens is 2.8. Got a lot of 2.8. Second is 4 millimeter, third is 6 millimeter. These are rugged, IP66, have infrared, have an SD slot. These are probably one of the most popular cameras. Second most popular cameras are, again, the same in the series as the 25 series. Again, these are, I call them a mini dome or a flat dome. They have the only downside to these is their infrared distance is 10 meters instead of 30 meters. and they have a limited third axis gimbal. So if you wanna put it in the corner and look this way, you gotta kinda aim the camera in that direction. With a dome, you can just put anywhere and swivel it. Again, if you notice, they're available in black and white color. Last cameras on page 24 are the barofocals. 2 meg, 4 meg, 5 meg, 2.8 to 12 only, no 8 to 32s here. So if you guys look for a barofocal, I'm gonna give you either this or the bullets on the next page. So these are motorized. So from the software, you're gonna set your field of view. They're not autofocus, but they're focus from the software, plus focus, minus focus. Again, much better than being up on a ladder. All right? Okay, what I didn't speak about before is the EXIR. You guys know what EXIR is? EXIR is, instead of having a ring of LEDs like this, we have a single LED with a reflector. We're into our second generation of EXIR. I have a couple of EXIRs in my house. I love the infrared light that comes out of them. Anytime you need, good infrared light, you're gonna sit with something EXIR. I like the turret style for, doctor's office, lawyer's office, residential. Once you kind of get into commercial, I'd rather push you into the bullets. The bullets have 2 EXIRs on them. So if you look at the distances, you're getting 50 meters versus 30 meters on the turret. So you guys need, hey, I got a long backyard with a lot of grass, I need longer distance, I have a big, truck parking lot. I'd rather push you into the bigger bullets with the twin EXIRs. And then the last 2 cameras are, again, barofocal bullets. Yeah, these are my favorite 2 pages in the catalog for cameras. You're going to pick anything here, you're not going to go wrong. Questions?
Well, rain, after the rain, even the night, you have well glare on the top. Everything to go back.
Yeah, so the question is on the dome cameras, you have a lot of glare coming off the infrared. So what happens with infrared is, unfortunately, behind the glass, and it's shooting out, so any dirt, any condensation that's on there is going to reflect back. It's going to reduce your range. There's really nothing you can do.
Question about the compression. I know you're going to talk about it later, but do the cameras maintain the frames per second even the compression is taking place higher? They hold the frames per second, i.e. 20 frames per second, 30 frames per second, do they hold that?
Well, if you do look in, I haven't heard of, by changing compressions, that they, right, you gonna cover that? But if you look in the spec, it'll actually tell you what the frame rates are at a certain resolution. So Tim will talk about that. Okay, so to me in that line, that's camera line number 2. Next page, page 26. We just came out with a line of cameras, H.265 plus. So if you look at the difference from an H.264 jumping over 64 plus, 65, 65 plus, the difference is about an 80% difference in compression and storage on your side, and you go from straight 264 to 265 plus. So if you have a customer that says, hey Greg, I need 6 months of storage, I need a year's worth of storage, I'm going to give you a 265 plus. A lot of the banks have very poor networks, I'll give you 265 plus compression. All the cameras in this series, again, it's 2 meg, 3 meg, 5 meg, and 8 megapixel. The first 2, the 2 and 3 meg, are considered, again, that dark fighter technology, the lower light. So you're going to get 0.008 low light color, versus 0.027 in the other ones. Again, if you look at camera body styles, we're not reinventing the cameras. We're not reinventing the camera styles. We can go to brackets. You can use a bracket as all the other series. Again, same turret, same bullet, same thing. Again, we're just looking at a 265 plus compression. Okay, so that's camera line number 3. Page 28. Value series, before the Value Plus was out, this was my main seller. Again, we sold tons of these. You guys are familiar with the 2132s. That was a huge seller, still continues to be a huge seller. Again, it's the same body style, it's the same feature set of the Value Plus series. The only difference in this series is 1 meg and 3 megs, with the value plus was 2, 4, and 5. All right, again, no real light dynamic. This is digital light dynamic. Again, the price difference you're going to see is $10 to $15 for the value plus with the 264 plus and the real WDR. 2 cameras here that do not have infrared are these 2 right here. These are kind of meant for drop ceiling. Got like a 1-inch diameter hole. They have little spring clips, pop them up. You know, the indoor hallways, very, very discreet. We spoke about the 25 series. We do have a couple of specialty ones. 2 millimeter lens. And so one megapixel and 2 megapixel, no infrared. I usually recommend these for elevators. This is my elevator, my go-to elevator camera. Again, 2 millimeters, this much above a 1.9. Again, page 29, again, same body styles. Again, I'd rather see you guys in the Value Plus series. Page 30, you guys use PTZs typically? Yes, no, maybe, sometimes. Again, we have a lot of PTZs. These are the Value series. 20X and 30X versus the 36X ones in the Pro series. No smart tracking. Some have infrared, some don't have infrared. One little noteworthy camera is this last one on page 30. Basically, it's got a 2.8 to 12. Motorized. It's not duty rated, but if you guys like do a construction site where the construction vehicles are here today and they move them there tomorrow, you can just easily move it back and forth. If you ever did a tall warehouse, like a 40-foot ceiling warehouse, where you're not sure of the lens, you're not sure of the view the camera, customer wants, because every time he wants to change it, you got to drag out the lift. These are priced at about $350. So for a PTZ camera, they're very low priced. The popular cameras in this series, my favorites anyway, are these 2. 2 megapixel with infrared, 20X, 20 or 30X zoom. We are coming out with 3, 4, and 5 megapixel right after those. They are probably not available yet. They'll be available in a few weeks. But those are my 2 favorites. You guys need an outdoor PTZ. Okay, moving on. Okay. Very important page coming up. All right, so we spoke about 16 and above using an NVR in the Pro Series. So we do have actually a couple of 32 camera recorders. I think they're going to be available shortly. But anytime you guys do a project with 16 cameras and below, you're going to be into one of these recorders. So we got a 4-channel, 8 channels, low end 16, higher end 16, and the 32. You notice why, you're going to ask, why are there 2 8s and 2 16s? You have an E2 and an I2. The E2 are kind of the older model, even though they're still available. What's the difference? 6 meg camera versus 12 meg camera. Only H.264 versus 265 plus. 4K output. So again, not that the E2s are bad, but I'd much prefer to see you guys on an I2 recorder. So I'm going to say, try to stay away from that one and try to stay away from the 7616. Again, same differences, just bigger feature set. Higher end 16, the main difference is 24 terabytes of storage versus 12 terabytes of storage. Again, typically 12 is enough. You might have a customer here and 2, 3, 4 months. Go with the bigger 16. Just came out with, I'm not even sure these are shipping yet. These are 32 channel plug and plays. One of them has no built-in PoE switch. One has a 16-port PoE switch. My preference would be for the built-in 16, but if you want to go beyond 16, you got to add an external switch. So again, built-in PoE.
Network card?
Two NICs on all these?
The one that doesn't have built-in PoE.
Oh, the one that doesn't have built-in
Yeah.
PoE? I don't know if we've seen one yet. Have you seen one yet? No, the 32. 2 NICs? This should be, I think. I would say, we're not sure. Not sure on the 32. Again, we really haven't seen them. They haven't been released yet. All right, page 33, Wi-Fi. Unless you guys are, unless someone's a really good network on, they stay away from it. Not that I don't sell it, but everybody thinks, oh, there's an outlet there, and 300 feet away, I put my recorder, and they think magically it's gonna work with all the Wi-Fi that's out there. So just be careful with the Wi-Fi cameras. 34 and 35, kits. So we do make kitted products. IP kits on page 34, turbo kits on page 35. I really don't spend a lot of time on the kits. Don't get a lot of questions about the kits. It's kind of, guys just pick them up, walk away, install them. They're typically for, you know, residential or small mom and pop. They come in 4 cameras on a 4-camera recorder and 6 cameras on an 8-camera recorder. The 4-camera recorders have 1 terabyte, the 6 cameras have 2 terabytes. You can add if you want, but that's what they come in. So again, we make these in an IP kit, and we make it in a turbo kit. Again, 10 by 4, 4, and 6 on an 8. We're just quiet. All right, so let's jump ahead a little bit. Jump to, all right, so that was the 3rd, 4th camera. Let's jump to 45. Okay, so you guys heard of TBI? You guys know what TBI is?
Yeah.
TBI? Okay, so Hikvision's terminology is turbo. Turbo is our terminology for TBI. TBI is megapixel on coax. Okay? So the big example I use, I have 8 cameras in my house. I've had analog cameras for 10 years. All of a sudden my recorder dies, a couple of my cameras die. I call my security guy up and go, hey, my recorder died, 4 of my 8 cameras are working, and I heard about that great megapixel stuff. What do you got? So what do? These will take my existing analog cameras, you know, take the old recorder out, put the old recorder in. My 4 analog cameras work fine. We replace my older analog cameras that are broken with TBI cameras. TBI cameras are 1 meg, 2 meg, 3 meg, and 5 megs coming out, 4K by the end of the year. Replace my old cameras with new megapixel cameras. Now I'm getting megapixel video over a coax.
You're saying 3 megapixel, 5 megapixel coax?
5 will be out in September.
And you
So,
what's the requirement for 5?
as far as?
Cable and cable.
And coax. Coax has a lot of bandwidth on it. You can do 100 meg on a coax. So the turbo/TBI technology is kind of a bridge from the older analog world into the newer IP world. You know, if there, let's say there was no such thing as turbo, no such thing as TBI, when I call my security guy, he's going to go, oh, sorry, Greg, we're going to have to rip everything out, we're going to have to run everything new and give you IP. It's going to cost a lot of money, right? In my scenario, all we're doing is changing the recorder out, all my cameras will work, and I pop in new cameras, right? So again, it's bridging the old to the new. You know, my rule of thumb is if you walk into a customer and you see coax there, most likely you're going to sell them a turbo system. If it's a new install, you're going to sell them an IP product. What's that? The question was, what's the footage requirement? Early on, I actually had this question yesterday. Early on, I think there was a limitation of about 300 feet, but time marches on and technology moves on. 1,500 feet on RG6, probably about 1,1200 on RG59.
You know, balance affect the HD of coax?
We do have turbo balance. I think the distance of the balance is about 600 feet though. But still 600 feet should get you a pretty good distance, right? So 1,500 feet, again, I don't really recommend using the TBI on a new install. Again, there are guys out there who know nothing, they can't spell IP, and they're better off selling the turbo product. Again, IP is not for everybody, you know, and again, the turbo, again, I have turbos in my house, they look great. And again, it's 2 meg is 2 meg is 2 meg, who cares whether it's over a cat or a coax. So on page, again, we have a lot of turbo recorders, to the point where I get confused almost. So I'm gonna show you my 2 favorites. My two series of favorites. Okay. Okay, so on page 45, we've got the 73 series. We've got an 8-channel, a 16-channel, and a 32-channel. 8, 16, or 32 BNCs. So so we have a 73 series, less features, 73 more features. So in the 73 series, I like the 73 series, it's any mix and match of analog, TVI, or IP. Any mix and match.
It'll be 32 channels, TVI plus 32 channels.
No, 32 top. But it can be 10 analog, 15 TVIs, and 7 IP. Any mix and match. Again, I don't think it's the full intent of the product, to be honest with you, but it can do it. The only caveat is the maximum megapixel is 2. So whether it's a 2 megapixel IP, 2 megapixel turbo, it's 2.
PBBS, what's the resolution? PBBS.
It's not megapixel.
Is it 1950, is it, a minimum? Okay.
I don't know the resolution. You know the resolution the TVS had on it?
PBBS.
Yeah. So typically most of our recorders have 2 outputs. It's got an HDMI and a VGA here. This one also has a spot output. So I actually have the 7308 mine, 7308. So when I put it in, I had an old coax running up to my TV in my den. Figured, okay, great, I got a spot output. Typically spot used to connotate one camera. Plugged it in, I have a multi-screen output. So all my 9 cameras in my house display my TV. Not megapixels, not HDMI, it's not VGA, but you know, when my friend's going to show up in the you know, I want to see if he's going to show up, I just switch to the screen. Again, so if you want to run that VGA or HDMI up, you can, but it does have a, you know, analog output on it. These all have 2 things. One day. Yeah, remember, these are basically, for TVI. I'm sorry, they're basically for coax. So you have to put a switch on the one NIC and have the camera in and the other camera out. So again, on my system, I've got 7 TVIs, 1 analog, and 1 IP. Works fine. So again, that's my favorite there. Now, if you want to bump up a little bit, we have the 9000 series. So the 9000 series is 8 BNCs plus 8 IP, so it's a total of 16, and then 16 BNC plus 16 IP. Okay? So you're starting out at 16 and 16. As you disable the BNCs, you gain IP. So this could be a full 32 channel NVR, or it could be 16 and 16, or any number in between. The nice part about this recorder is 48 terabytes versus the 24, but now your largest megapixel size is 6. All right, typically I recommend these for one of 2 things. First thing is I need 3, 4, 5 months of storage. Now we have 48 terabytes on board, or you could order with 48 terabytes. Secondary, let's say that they have 16 cameras here, they all work fine. They call you up and go, hey, I just bought the office space next door. So instead of putting a separate recorder here, a separate recorder there, you sell them a 9016, you put the 16 cameras on, they all work fine, you put a switch next door and start adding IP cameras. Okay, it's kind of it's kind of more closer to a bridge to the IP world. So those are my 2 favorite recorders, is the 73 series and 9000 series. I mean, the output, that one has 3 also. VGA, HDMI, and the TVS. All independent. Just a little trick, a little pointer. I do have a customer in the city. He gave me this idea. He might have a customer who calls him up and says, hey, look, Greg, I got 16 cameras. All the cameras work. I just need a new recorder. So he's got old analog resolution cameras. So what he does is he'll go in with the recorder and 1 TVI key. He'll buy a cheap, like a little bullet TVI, it's like $80. He'll go in, he'll put a little TVI in at 2 meg, or listen, the customer's staring at the beautiful resolution on the 2 meg and the analog. And he goes, within a month, month and a half, the customer calls him back and says, hey, change out all of the cameras, I can't stand the old resolution. And I was the same way. I put a system in, I put one TV camera up, I kept staring at it, I'm like, wow, it's good compared to the analog. Okay, any questions on TVI? All right, moving along, we're almost done. Skip over that. Let's go to page 48. Okay, so Hikvision makes their own PoE switches. They are purpose-built for security as opposed to anybody that's just regular old PoE switch. There are a couple of features that I'm not going to touch on for the matter of time. The biggest feature that you're going to like is 250-meter distance from our switch to our PoE, to our IP camera, 250 meters. The typical distance is 100 meters, about 330. We'll go up to 820 feet. Okay, the one caveat is the port speed will go down to 10 megabits once you go beyond that 330. But typically that's good for 3 or 4 megabits, 2, 3, 4 megabits per camera. Okay? 4 camera, 8 camera, 16, 24 port PoE switch. Okay? Well, this is unmanaged, and on the bottom we have managed switches. Okay? The 250 meter distance. Keep over that, keep over that. Okay, almost done. Page 50. We were talking about, someone asked me about, 48 terabytes, is that enough? If you need more storage, we have extension chassis. We've got a 16-port chassis with a 16-port expansion and a 24-port with a 24-port expansion. So you can have up to 72 external drives attached to your recorder. I had one guy who went 3 years. I think we went with 3 of the 24s. So if you need beyond that 48, we can get you beyond 48. Okay, lastly, page 51. 51, 52, 53, we spoke about all the, all the cameras we spoke about, all the PCs we spoke about. We have brackets for everything. We have white brackets, black brackets. We've got junction boxes, conduit boxes, wall brackets. Pretty much any mount you would need. Sometimes you might have to change the camera to get a specific mount. We have basically all the mounts. So I'm basically done. 3-year warranty on everything. That's pretty much it. You guys have any questions on the product side?
On the PoE switch, when you go to extended mode,
Yeah.
if you're not utilizing that distance, does it still go down?
No, it'll be 100.
Yeah.
Is it selectable per port, or is it just everything? Everything just goes to the 250, everything drops down. You have to buy separate ports if you want to have, cameras in further distances away. To buy those cameras.
Well, all the ports for that, but we don't manufacture switches.
You need 2 sub switches if you want to buy them.
If you want a long distance switch and a regular switch.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is give you guys a quick 5-minute break while Tim sets up, and he'll do the tech side of the report. I know you're all for it, but I had to get my 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Yeah. TV or, link TV. All right. They want us to support this joint. Just that meeting letter. Like download. Yeah. You just take what I'm on mobile recorder. And record.